The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of light and darkness, life and death. For millennia, the Jedi and Sith have drawn upon this cosmic energy, shaping destinies and toppling empires. But the Force is not the only power in existence. Beyond the boundaries of this galaxy, in dimensions unknown to even the most ancient Force wielders, other powers stir. Powers that owe nothing to midi-chlorians or the cosmic balance. Powers born of different rules entirely. What happens when such a power tears its way into a galaxy unprepared for its arrival? The answer came not as a whisper through the Force, but as a scream across the fabric of reality itself. Vergil's blade sang as it carved through the neck of the Hell Vanguard, demonic ichor spraying across shattered concrete. 3 more demons rushed him from the left, lesser spawn, barely worth his attention. His left hand moved with practiced precision, and spectral blue swords materialized in the air around him, each one a manifestation of his demonic power given lethal form. The summoned swords launched forward, punching through demonic flesh with terminal efficiency. "Foolish," Vergil muttered, adjusting his grip on Yamato's hilt. The katana gleamed in the hellish light emanating from the portal behind him, its edge so sharp it could separate atoms, dimensions, the very concept of distance itself. The portal was the problem, 6 meters tall, hemorrhaging demons into his world and growing larger by the second. His brother would have made some quip about pest control or demon extermination. Vergil simply raised Yamato, channeling his demonic power through the legendary blade. Judgment cut. The air itself screamed. Yamato didn't just cut through space, it cut the concept asterisk of space, creating a dimensional slash that existed in multiple planes simultaneously. The technique bisected 3 charging demons before reaching the portal's event horizon. Then something went wrong. Yamato's reality-severing edge met the portal's dimensional membrane at the precise moment. A surge of energy pulsed from the other side. The collision wasn't just physical, it was metaphysical. 2 different universal laws grinding against each other like tectonic plates. Vergil's eyes widened fractionally, the only sign of surprise he would permit himself, as he felt Yamato's power spiral out of his control. The portal didn't close, it inverted. Space folded, reality buckled. Vergil felt himself pulled forward, not through the demon portal, but through a tear in existence that Yamato itself had created, a wound between dimensions that suddenly gaped wide. He tried to dismiss the blade, to sever his connection to the technique, but momentum had already claimed him. The last thing he saw of his world was the demon portal collapsing in on itself. And then he was falling through a tunnel of fractured light and impossible colors, dimensions bleeding into each other. The Yamato still clutched in his hand and burning with power it had never been meant to channel. Time lost meaning. Distance became a suggestion. Vergil's demonic nature kept him conscious through the transit. A human would have been atomized instantly. He could feel his devil trigger straining, his demonic power flaring involuntarily as it tried to protect him from the dimensional turbulence. And then, as suddenly as it began, it ended. Mustafar's volcanic surface rushed up to meet him at terminal velocity. Vergil twisted in midair, his supernatural reflexes orienting his body even as his mind cataloged the alien landscape below. Black volcanic rock, rivers of lava, an atmosphere thick with sulfur and ash. His coat, blue and weathered, a relic of his human heritage, snapped in the superheated wind. He landed in a crouch that cracked the obsidian beneath his boots, one hand pressed to the ground, Yamato held low in the other. The impact would have liquefied a human. Vergil simply straightened, brushing volcanic dust from his shoulder. His eyes cold, calculating the blue-gray of storm clouds swept across the hellish landscape. Not his world, not his dimension. The realization settled over him like a familiar coat. This wasn't the first time he'd traveled between realms, but the method had been inelegant. Where, he began, then stopped. He felt it immediately, a presence, vast and pervasive, woven through everything around him. Not demonic, not angelic, something else entirely, an energy that seemed to connect the very atoms of this dimension. It pulled at the edges of his consciousness, trying to touch something within him that simply wasn't there. Vergil's lip curled. Whatever this energy was, it meant nothing to him. His power came from within, from his father's bloodline, from the demon blood that made him more than human. He needed nothing from this dimension. A distant rumble caught his attention. His head snapped toward the horizon, where a structure rose from the lava plains, dark metal and angular architecture, clearly artificial, a fortress of some kind. More importantly, he sensed movement, multiple entities approaching his position with military precision. Vergil's hand tightened on Yamato's hilt as the first craft came into view, a boxy, utilitarian vessel that screamed military efficiency. It descended rapidly, and from its open bay dropped a dozen white-armored figures, their movements synchronized, their weapons already raised. Stormtroopers, though Vergil didn't know the name yet. Unidentified being, one of them called out, voice distorted through a helmet speaker. You are in violation of Imperial restricted airspace. Surrender immediately or we will open fire. Vergil said nothing. His eyes tracked each soldier, calculating angles, threat assessments, response times. 12 targets. Standard energy weapons, unfamiliar design, but the principle was obvious from the way they held them. Military training, but not exceptional. The armor looked durable but had obvious weak points at the joints. This is your final warning, the lead stormtrooper shouted. Lay down your weapon and... Vergil moved. To the stormtroopers, he simply vanished. One moment he stood 30 meters away, the next he was among them, Yamato's blade singing from its sheath in a draw so fast the air itself cracked. The first stormtrooper fell in 2 pieces before his finger could tighten on the trigger. The others opened fire, but Vergil was already gone, his superhuman speed making their aim meaningless. Blaster bolts, he would learn the term later, ionized the air where he'd been standing. He reappeared behind the formation, Yamato cutting through armor plating and the flesh beneath with contemptuous ease. 3 more fell. Contact, we need reinforcements. A summoned sword materialized and punched through the trooper's chest plate, cutting off his transmission. Vergil walked through the remaining stormtroopers like a reaper through wheat, each movement economical, precise, wasteful of neither energy nor motion. This was how the Son of Sparda fought, not with passion or fury, but with absolute, overwhelming skill. 15 seconds after the engagement began, 12 bodies littered the volcanic rock. Vergil flicked Yamato once, clearing it of blood and ash, then sheathed it in a single fluid motion. He knelt beside one of the fallen soldiers, examining the armor. Plastoid, he would later learn, but for now it was simply durable polymer, inferior to demonic hide. The weapon was more interesting, energy-based, contained plasma, elegant in its simplicity. He heard more engines, more craft approaching. Good, perhaps these would provide more information. 3 more transports descended, disgorging not stormtroopers but figures in dark robes and armor, each carrying a weapon he recognized immediately despite its alien design. A sword of pure energy, held in a hilt, extending roughly a meter. Some kind of plasma blade, contained by a magnetic field if he had to guess. But it was the asterisk presence of these new arrivals that gave him pause. Unlike the soldiers, these figures radiated that strange energy he'd felt earlier. It clung to them, flowed through them, made them somehow more substantial than the world around them. A force sensitive, one of them hissed, but his presence is wrong. It doesn't matter, another replied, a woman with ritual scars across her pale face. The Grand Inquisitor commanded we bring him in alive if possible. Lord Vader wants to question this one personally. Inquisitors, former Jedi, broken and twisted to serve the Empire's purpose of hunting their former brothers and sisters. They had been tracking Force sensitives for years, and Vergil's arrival had registered as a massive disturbance, a void wrapped in power, neither light nor dark, but somehow other asterisk. Vergil stood slowly, Yamato's hilt resting comfortably in his hand. "Vader," he repeated, tasting the name. "Another lord of this realm, I presume." "You will address him as Lord Vader when you kneel before him," the scarred Inquisitor replied, her lightsaber, a double-bladed weapon that spun on a mechanism in the hilt, igniting with a harsh crimson glow. "Surrender, and we will show mercy." Vergil's expression didn't change, but something cold and terrible flickered in his eyes. "I kneel before no one." The Inquisitors attacked as one, their lightsabers humming through the superheated air. They were skilled, far more so than the soldiers, their movements enhanced by the Force, their attacks coordinated through years of training. The scarred one came high while her partner struck low, the third circling to flank. Yamato met the first lightsaber in a shower of sparks that should have been impossible. The Inquisitor's eyes widened behind her mask. Her lightsaber, a blade of contained plasma that could cut through nearly anything, had met resistance. Not just resistance, but absolute opposition. Yamato's edge didn't just deflect the lightsaber, it rejected it, as if the katana existed in a layer of reality the lightsaber couldn't quite reach. Because in a sense it did. Yamato cut through dimensions themselves. A mere energy blade was nothing. Vergil's riposte was textbook perfect, Yamato flowing from defense to offense without wasted motion. The Inquisitor threw herself backward, enhanced by Force-augmented reflexes, but Yamato's tip still carved a line across her armor. She landed badly, shock disrupting her concentration. The other two pressed their advantage, or tried to. Vergil's left hand came up, and 4 summoned swords materialized in the air around him, each one a spectral blade of blue energy. They launched like missiles, forcing the Inquisitors to disengage, their lightsabers spinning to deflect the projectiles. But summoned swords weren't physical. They were manifestations of demonic power. The lightsabers passed through them without effect, and the spectral blades continued their trajectory, punching into armor, drawing blood. "What are you?" one Inquisitor gasped, genuine fear creeping into his voice. Vergil didn't answer. He closed the distance in a burst of speed that left afterimages, Yamato cutting a horizontal arc that would have bisected the Inquisitor if he hadn't desperately thrown up a Force barrier. The translucent shield of pure Force energy manifested between them, and Yamato cut through it like it wasn't there. The blade that could sever dimensions didn't care about energy constructs, no matter how they were generated. Yamato existed partially outside normal space. Force barriers, lightsabers, solid matter, all were equally meaningless before its edge. The Inquisitor fell, clutching the wound across his chest. Not fatal, not yet, but he was out of the fight. The remaining 2 Inquisitors exchanged glances, a conversation happening through the Force in the span of a heartbeat. Then they moved in unison, not to attack, but to retreat, one of them speaking urgently into a comlink while the other provided covering fire, literal fire, as he channeled the Force to ignite the ground between them and Vergil. Vergil watched them go, making no move to pursue. He had learned what he needed. This dimension's warriors relied heavily on this pervasive energy, the Force they'd mentioned. They channeled it through their bodies, used it to enhance their physical capabilities and manifest external effects. Interesting, but ultimately irrelevant to him. His power came from within, it always had. He turned his attention to the fallen Inquisitor, the one he'd wounded but not killed. The man was trying to crawl toward his comlink, leaving a trail of blood on volcanic rock. Vergil placed his boot on the Inquisitor's wrist, not hard enough to break it, but enough to stop the movement. "You mentioned Vader," Vergil said, his voice carrying no emotion. "Tell me about him." "Go to hell, demon," the Inquisitor spat. It wasn't impressive. Vergil pressed down slightly and bones creaked. "Vader now." The pain and the absolute certainty in Vergil's tone broke through the Inquisitor's resistance. Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, the Emperor's enforcer, the most powerful Force user in the galaxy. "The most powerful," Vergil repeated, something like interest flickering in his expression. "Where do I find him?" The Inquisitor laughed, a broken sound. "You don't find Lord Vader, he finds you, and when he does..." The man's eyes held a fanatic's certainty. "You'll realize you're nothing. Your tricks, your strange power, it's nothing compared to the dark side of the Force." Vergil released the man's wrist and stepped back. "We'll see." He looked up at the fortress in the distance, then at the direction the Inquisitors had fled. More would come. This Vader would come. Good. If this dimension had a hierarchy of power, he would climb it. If this Force was truly the pinnacle of strength here, he would understand it, master it, or prove it inferior to his own abilities. That was who he was. That was what he did. Power, always more power. The Yamato hummed softly in his hand, as if sensing his thoughts, still thrumming with the residual energy from tearing between dimensions. Vergil examined the blade carefully. No damage, no degradation. Good. He would need it in the battles to come. Behind him, the wounded Inquisitor was speaking frantically into his comlink. "Unknown, hostile, extreme threat level, lightsaber resistant. Recommend immediate deployment of Lord Vader himself." Vergil's coat snapped in the volcanic wind as he began walking toward the fortress, leaving the Inquisitor and the bodies of the stormtroopers behind. Let them come. Let this Vader come. He would face whatever this dimension threw at him, and he would emerge stronger, or he would carve a path back to his own world with Yamato's edge. Either outcome was acceptable. The Son of Sparda had arrived in the Star Wars galaxy, and the Force itself seemed to shudder at the presence of power it could neither touch nor comprehend. A void in its infinite web, a blade that cut through its very existence. In the fortress, alarms were already screaming. Imperial officers scrambled to analyze the security footage. And in a meditation chamber aboard a distant Star Destroyer, a figure in black armor opened eyes that glowed yellow with the corruption of the dark side. Darth Vader had felt the disturbance. Something had arrived on Mustafar, something that felt like a wound in the Force itself, a nothing wrapped in terrible power. He reached out through the Force, trying to sense this intruder's nature, his intentions, his weaknesses. The Force touched only void, empty space where a presence should be, a hole in existence. Vader's mechanical breathing filled the chamber as he considered this impossibility. Then he stood, his cape settling around his armored frame like the wings of some massive predator. "Prepare my shuttle," he commanded. "I'm going to Mustafar." If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Lambda-class shuttle descended through Mustafar's ash-choked atmosphere like a bird of prey, its angular wings cutting through thermals that would have torn a lesser craft apart. Inside, Darth Vader stood motionless in the passenger bay, his presence so oppressive that even the pilot dared not speak except when absolutely necessary. The Dark Lord's meditation had been interrupted by something he had not felt in years: genuine uncertainty. The Force was his tool, his weapon, the source of his terrible power. Through it, he could sense the emotions of beings across star systems, crush windpipes without laying a hand on his victims, see the future in fragments and possibilities. The Force connected all living things in an invisible web, and Vader was a spider at its center, feeling every vibration. But this new presence on Mustafar was a dead spot in that web, a severed thread, a void that somehow radiated power without drawing upon the Force at all. Impossible. And yet the evidence was undeniable: 12 dead stormtroopers, 3 Inquisitors wounded or dead, and security footage that showed a figure moving with speed that rivaled his own, wielding a blade that cut through lightsabers as if they were children's toys. The shuttle's landing struts engaged with a hiss of hydraulics. Vader strode down the ramp before it had fully deployed, his cape billowing in the superheated wind. A squad of stormtroopers snapped to attention, but he ignored them, his senses already reaching outward. There, moving through the fortress's outer perimeter with the casual confidence of someone who had already dismissed the local garrison as a threat, the void in the Force moved with purpose, heading deeper into Imperial territory rather than away from it. Bold, foolish, or supremely confident, Vader began walking, his mechanical breathing the only sound that mattered. Stormtroopers fell into formation around him, but he knew they were irrelevant. Whatever this intruder was, standard soldiers would be no more effective against him than they had been already. "Lord Vader," the fortress commander's voice crackled through his comlink. "The intruder has breached Section 7. He's heading toward the Central Archives. Should we evacuate all personnel from Sections 7 through 12, Vader commanded. "Seal the blast doors behind them. No one is to engage the intruder except by my direct order." "My lord, the archives contain sensitive." "I am aware of what they contain, Commander." Vader's tone dropped to a register that promised death. "Obey." The comlink went silent. Vader continued his measured pace through the fortress corridors, reviewing the security footage in his mind. The intruder's fighting style was unlike anything in the Imperial databases. Economical, precise, built on perfect technique rather than raw strength or force enhancement. The blade he carried, a simple katana by appearance, demonstrated properties that defied standard physics. It hadn't just deflected lightsaber strikes. It had rejected them, as if occupying a different layer of reality. And those spectral swords that manifested from nothing, ignoring lightsaber parries entirely. Vader's gloved hand clenched. He recognized the sensation building in his chest, unfamiliar after so many years of emotional suppression. Anticipation. This would not be like his usual encounters with rebel insurgents or failed Inquisitors. This would be a true test. He found the intruder in the central archive chamber, standing before a holographic display of star charts, studying them with clinical detachment. Vergil didn't turn at Vader's approach, though he'd sensed the Dark Lord's arrival from 3 corridors away. The man's presence was impossible to miss. That strange energy he'd felt earlier radiated from this newcomer like heat from a star, oppressive and vast. But unlike the Inquisitors, this one's power was refined, controlled, forged through decades of mastery rather than desperate grasping. A worthy opponent, perhaps. "You must be Vader," Vergil said, still not turning, his voice carrying the barest hint of interest. "Your subordinates spoke of you with remarkable fear." "As they should," Vader's mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "You have killed Imperial personnel and violated restricted territory. Surrender, and I will grant you a swift execution." Now Vergil turned, and for the first time the 2 warriors faced each other fully. Vader saw a man in his prime, pale-skinned and sharp-featured, with swept-back white hair and eyes like winter storms. He wore a long blue coat over black clothing, old-fashioned by galactic standards but clearly well-made. The katana at his side was sheathed, but the way his hand rested on its hilt spoke of absolute confidence. There was no fear in those eyes, no hesitation, only cold calculation and something darker, an obsession that Vader recognized because he had once carried it himself. The obsession for power. Vergil, for his part, studied the imposing figure before him with equal intensity. Black armor from head to toe, a cape that would have been theatrical on a lesser being, and a helmet that completely obscured the face. But it was the presence that commanded attention. This Vader carried himself with the absolute certainty of someone who had crushed 1,000 challenges and expected to crush 1,000 more. The energy, this force, flowed through him like blood, integral to his being. And yet, for all that power, Vergil sensed something else. Pain. Constant, unending pain held at bay through sheer will and whatever mechanisms were built into that armor. This Vader was as much machine as man, sustained by technology and hatred in equal measure. A fallen warrior, then, one who had sacrificed his humanity for power. How familiar. "I'm not here to surrender," Vergil replied. "I'm here for information. Your fortress contains archives. I need to understand this galaxy, its sources of power, and how to navigate it." "You believe you can simply walk into Imperial facilities and take what you wish?" Vader's tone carried a hint of dark amusement. "Your arrogance will be your end." Arrogance implies uncertainty. Vergil's hand moved fractionally on Yamato's hilt. "I'm simply stating facts. You can provide the information willingly, or I can take it from your corpse. Either outcome is acceptable." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Vader's breathing, constant and mechanical, somehow grew heavier, more menacing. The Force gathered around him like a storm preparing to break, pressing down on the physical space itself. It washed over Vergil like water over stone, completely ineffective. Vader felt it immediately, the impossibility of what his senses were reporting. The crushing pressure of the dark side, which should have driven a non-Force sensitive to their knees in existential terror, simply stopped, not deflected or resisted, but ignored. As if the Force itself refused to acknowledge this man's existence. "What are you?" Vader demanded, genuine curiosity beneath the mechanical monotone. "I am the Son of Sparda," Vergil replied, as if that explained everything. "A half-demon seeking greater power, and you are an obstacle in my path." Vader's lightsaber ignited with a snap hiss, its crimson blade casting blood-red shadows across the chamber. "Then you will be removed." He struck with the speed of a viper, closing the 10-meter gap in a Force-enhanced leap that would have caught any normal opponent by surprise. His lightsaber descended in a classic gem-so power strike, designed to overwhelm defenses through pure strength. Yamato met the blow in a shower of sparks and a sound like reality tearing. Vader's eyes widened fractionally behind his mask. The resistance was wrong, not like striking another lightsaber or even a Force pike. This was like striking something that existed partially outside normal space, a blade that refused to fully interact with physical matter even as it clearly existed. Vergil's riposte came instantly, Yamato flowing from high guard to a thrust aimed at Vader's chest. The Dark Lord brought his lightsaber around in a defensive arc, simultaneously reaching out with the Force to telekinetically grip Vergil and hurl him backward. The Force found nothing to grip. Vader had to physically sidestep the thrust, his armor's servos whining with the sudden movement. Yamato's tip passed centimeters from his chest plate, and in that instant, Vader felt the blade's true nature. It didn't just cut matter, it cut asterisk space, creating micro-dimensional rifts with every swing. They separated, circling each other in the ruined archive chamber. Holographic displays flickered and died around them, damaged by the electromagnetic discharge from Vader's lightsaber and the reality-distorting effects of Yamato. "Impressive," Vader acknowledged, genuine respect in his mechanical voice. "You are the first opponent in years to force me to evade rather than simply overwhelm, but you have one critical weakness." "Enlighten me," Vergil replied, his tone suggesting he already knew what Vader would say. "You cannot touch the Force. You cannot sense it, cannot wield it, cannot draw upon its power. In this galaxy, that makes you fundamentally limited, no matter how skilled you may be with a blade." Vergil's lip curled into something that might have been a smile if there was any warmth in it. "The Force is your crutch, Vader. You rely on it so completely that you've forgotten what true skill looks like." He moved, not with teleportation or Force speed, but with pure demonic velocity, his half-devil physiology allowing movements that would tear human muscles from bone. Yamato became a silver blur, each strike placed with mathematical precision at the joints in Vader's armor, the weak points any skilled swordsman could identify. Vader met him blow for blow, his lightsaber work refined through decades of combat, his gems so formed providing the defensive structure to weather Vergil's assault. But he was forced to rely on physical technique rather than force precognition. Seeing the future was useless when his opponent existed outside the Force's predictive web. The duel accelerated. Crimson energy met dimensional steel in a staccato rhythm of impossible impacts. The walls of the archive chamber began to crack, not from direct hits, but from the sheer energy being thrown around. Vader's lightsaber carved molten furrows in durasteel. Yamato's edge left cuts that seemed to go deeper than the physical damage suggested, as if the blade was severing the structural integrity at a fundamental level. Vergil manifested summoned swords, 6 spectral blades appearing in the air around him. They launched at Vader from multiple angles, forcing the Dark Lord to spin his lightsaber in a defensive wheel. But as he'd learned from the security footage, the spectral blades passed through lightsaber blocks without resistance, being demonic constructs rather than physical matter. Vader reached out with the Force, grabbing debris from around the chamber and hurling it to intercept the summoned swords. Broken terminals, chunks of durasteel, even a piece of the wall, all flew to create physical barriers. The spectral blades punched through most of it, but the debris slowed them enough for Vader to dodge, his cape swirling as he moved with surprising grace for such a large figure. "You adapt quickly," Vergil observed, launching himself forward again, Yamato cutting upward in a rising strike that would have bisected Vader from hip to shoulder. Vader caught the blade on his lightsaber, then did something Vergil hadn't expected. He deactivated the weapon for a split second, allowing Yamato to pass through the space where it had been, then reignited it to slash at Vergil's extended arm. Vergil's summoned swords interposed themselves, taking the blow. 2 of them shattered under the lightsaber's sustained contact, dissolving back into demonic energy. Vergil leaped backward, reassessing. "You're not like the others," he said, a hint of approval in his cold voice. "You actually think during combat." "I did not survive Order 66 and the Jedi Purge by relying solely on power," Vader replied. His breathing was slightly labored now, the exertion starting to tax even his enhanced physiology. "Every battle is a lesson. Every opponent teaches something new. Then learn this." Vergil's aura changed. The air around him began to shimmer with blue-black energy, demonic power rising to the surface. His eyes, already cold, took on a faintly luminescent quality. This was him preparing to activate his devil trigger, to transform into his true demonic form. But he stopped, frowning. The transformation was sluggish. His demonic energy was there, as vast as ever, but accessing his full devil trigger required drawing on ambient demonic energy from his environment, something every half-demon did instinctively. Here, in this dimension, there was no such energy to draw upon. He could force the transformation using only his internal reserves, but it would burn through his stamina far faster than normal. A limitation, his first true limitation in this dimension. Vader sensed the hesitation, though he couldn't understand its cause through the Force. He pressed his advantage, unleashing a barrage of telekinetic strikes, hurling debris, twisting metal beams, even attempting to collapse the ceiling. None of it could grip Vergil directly, but the environment was still subject to the Force's influence. Vergil cut through the assault with contemptuous ease, Yamato's edge severing metal and stone as if they were paper. But he was forced on the defensive, his calculated aggression stymied by Vader's tactical shift. "You claim the Force is a crutch," Vader said, his mechanical voice carrying over the chaos. "Yet you are discovering that in this galaxy it is the fundamental law. You are powerful, stranger. Perhaps the most skilled swordsman I have ever faced, but you are asterisk alone, cut off from whatever power sustained you in your dimension. Here you are finite, limited, and I am not. Vergil's eyes narrowed. The Dark Lord had a point, much as it galled him to admit it. His demonic power was self-sustaining, yes, but without access to ambient demonic energy, his devil trigger would be a costly last resort rather than a sustainable combat enhancement. And if this force truly was the fundamental energy of this dimension, being unable to access it put him at a strategic disadvantage. Not an insurmountable disadvantage, but a disadvantage nonetheless. An interesting theory, Vergil said, his tone betraying nothing. Shall we test it? He sheathed Yamato in a deliberate motion, the blade sliding home with a soft click. Vader tensed, recognizing a preparation for some kind of technique. He raised his lightsaber defensively, simultaneously reaching out with the force to sense any shift in the environment. Vergil drew. The technique was called Judgment Cut End, the ultimate expression of Yamato's dimensional severing power. In the span of a single breath, Vergil drew and sheathed Yamato multiple times, each drawcut creating dimensional slashes in a sphere around him. To an observer, it looked like he had simply drawn once, but the space around him suddenly filled with dozens of intersecting reality tiers, each one capable of cutting through any material. Vader felt the danger instinctively, even without being able to sense Vergil through the Force. He threw up a force barrier with both hands, dropping his lightsaber to float beside him, pouring every ounce of dark side power he possessed into the defensive construct. The translucent shield of pure force energy materialized around him, layered and reinforced. Yamato's dimensional slashes cut through it like it didn't exist. The first slash carved across Vader's chest plate, leaving a line of molten metal. The second caught his shoulder, the third his leg. None of the cuts were deep. Vergil had pulled the technique at the last moment, recognizing that killing Vader now would answer none of his questions, but the message was clear. Your force barriers mean nothing to me. Vader staggered, more from shock than pain. His armor had been breached. His force barrier, which had withstood turbolaser fire and the focused attacks of multiple Jedi, had been cut through as if it were made of mist. Impossible. And yet the evidence was carved into his armor. The two warriors stood in the ruined archive chamber, both breathing hard, neither willing to concede. The duel had reached a stalemate. Vader couldn't grip Vergil with the Force, couldn't predict his movements, couldn't crush him with the dark side's overwhelming power. And Vergil, for all his skill and power, was operating at a disadvantage in this alien dimension, unable to access his full strength without exhausting himself. You are unlike anything I have encountered, Vader said finally, his mechanical breathing labored. Not Jedi, not Sith, not even a Force sensitive. You are an anomaly, a threat to the natural order. And yet I'm still standing, Vergil replied, his hand resting on Yamato's hilt, ready to draw again if necessary. Your natural order means nothing to me, Vader. I am here, I am powerful, and I will not leave until I understand this galaxy and determine whether it has anything to offer me. The Emperor will want to meet you, Vader said, a new calculation entering his tone. Lord Sidious is the most powerful Force user in existence, the master of the dark side itself. If anyone can determine your nature and purpose, it is him. Is that an invitation or a threat? Both. Vader retrieved his lightsaber with a gesture, the weapon flying back to his hand, but he didn't reignite it. You seek power. The Sith can offer you knowledge of the Force, access to ancient holocrons, understanding of this galaxy's hierarchies. In exchange, your unique abilities could prove useful to the Empire. Vergil considered this. His primary goal was to understand this dimension, learn what power it held, and determine how to either return home or establish himself here. This Emperor sounded like the apex predator of this galaxy's power structure. Meeting him would provide valuable intelligence. And if the Emperor proved disappointing, well, Vergil would simply carve his own path. I'll meet your Emperor, Vergil said, But understand this, Vader, I serve no one. I am not your soldier, not your weapon, not your subordinate. If this Emperor wishes my cooperation, he will offer something of equal value. Otherwise, he let the threat hang unspoken. Vader's breathing filled the silence for several long moments. Then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. You will find that Emperor Palpatine is not accustomed to negotiating with equals, but your uniqueness may intrigue him enough to make an exception. Then we have an accord, temporary and conditional, but an accord nonetheless. Vader turned toward the exit, then paused. What do I call you, anomaly? Vergil, son of Sparda, wielder of Yamato, a pause. And one day the most powerful being in this galaxy or my own. Ambition, Vader said, and there might have been approval in his mechanical tone. The hallmark of the Sith. Perhaps you are not so different from us after all. I am nothing like you, Vergil replied coldly. You sacrificed your humanity for power and gained a master in the process. I have never knelt, and I never will. The words struck deeper than any blade. Vader stood motionless for a long moment, old memories threatening to surface. A young man on a volcanic planet, burning, screaming, reaching out for salvation and finding only chains. He crushed the memories with the dark side's cold embrace. We shall see, Vergil. The Emperor has broken prouder beings than you. He's welcome to try. As they walked through the fortress together, not allies, not enemies, but two apex predators in an uneasy truce, neither noticed the small holocron that had been recording their entire exchange, its sensors struggling to process the impossible data of a being that existed outside the Force's influence. In his throne room on Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine felt a disturbance unlike any he had sensed in decades, a void in the Force, a nothing that somehow radiated terrible power, and Lord Vader was bringing it to him. The Emperor's withered lips curved into a smile. How interesting. The Imperial Star Destroyer * Devastator hung in the void above Coruscant like a dagger pointed at the heart of the galaxy. Vergil stood at the observation deck viewport, hands clasped behind his back, studying the city planet below with analytical detachment. Trillions of beings, countless levels of civilization stacked upon each other, all of it humming with that pervasive energy, the Force, that he could sense but never touch. Beside him, though maintaining a careful distance, stood Darth Vader. The Dark Lord had been silent for most of the journey from Mustafar, but Vergil could sense the tension radiating from him. This meeting with the Emperor was a gamble for both of them. The Emperor does not grant audiences lightly, Vader said finally, his mechanical voice cutting through the ambient hum of the ship's systems. Especially not to beings who resist the Force itself. He will test you, Vergil, probe for weaknesses, attempt to break your will. Let him try. Vergil's reflection in the viewport showed no concern, only cold confidence. I've been tested by demons, by my own brother, by entities that would devour your Emperor's soul as an appetizer. If this Palpatine thinks he can dominate me, he'll discover otherwise. Overconfidence is a weakness the Sith exploit. It's only overconfidence if I'm wrong. Vergil turned from the viewport, his storm gray eyes meeting Vader's masked gaze. Tell me about him, your Emperor. What drives him? What does he want? Vader was silent for a long moment, and Vergil sensed the internal calculation. How much to reveal, how much to conceal. Finally, the Dark Lord spoke. Emperor Palpatine is the culmination of a 1,000-year Sith plan. He orchestrated the Clone Wars, manipulated the Jedi Order into destroying itself, and transformed a corrupt republic into his personal empire. He is patient, ruthless, and commands the dark side with mastery I have only begun to approach. And yet you serve him. The statement hung in the air like an accusation. Vader's breathing deepened, mechanical and rhythmic. I was broken when he found me, burned, dying. He gave me purpose, power, a reason to continue existing. He gave you chains, Vergil corrected. Gilded chains, perhaps, but chains nonetheless. You were powerful before him, weren't you, before you became this? Vader's hand clenched into a fist, servos whining. For a moment, Vergil thought the Dark Lord might attack him again, but instead, Vader simply turned away. My past is irrelevant. I am what I am now. If you say so. Vergil's tone suggested he didn't believe it for a moment. But I've met enough broken warriors to recognize one when I see him. You hate what you've become, even as you embrace the power it grants you. You know nothing of. I know everything about it, Vergil interrupted, his voice cutting like Yamato's edge. I pursued power at the expense of my humanity. I abandoned my brother, rejected my mother's memory, all to claim my father's demonic heritage. I've been possessed, defeated, separated from myself and reforged. Don't lecture me about the cost of power, Vader. I've paid it in full. The silence that followed was different. Recognition, perhaps, between two beings who had sacrificed everything for strength and found the price higher than anticipated. Then you understand why I serve, Vader said quietly. I understand why you think you serve, Vergil replied. But servitude and I have never been compatible. When I meet your Emperor, he'll learn that as well. The Imperial Palace rose from Coruscant's surface like a monument to absolute power. Vergil walked through corridors lined with crimson-robed royal guards, each one standing motionless, their force pikes held at attention. They were clearly elite soldiers, but Vergil dismissed them as irrelevant. If he needed to fight his way out, these guards would be no more obstacle than the stormtroopers on Mustafar. Vader led him deeper into the palace, through security checkpoints that scanned them both with exotic technology. The scanners registered Vader's biosigns without issue, but when they swept over Vergil, the readings fluctuated wildly, alternating between no-life signs detected and massive energy signature of unknown origin. The technicians looked confused, but a single gesture from Vader silenced any questions. Finally, they reached a pair of massive doors, black as the void between stars. Vader stopped, turning to face Vergil one last time. Last chance to reconsider, the Dark Lord said. Once we enter, there is no turning back. The Emperor will perceive any attempt to leave as an insult, and insulting Emperor Palpatine is inevitably fatal. Vergil's response was to walk past Vader and place his hand on the door, pushing it open himself rather than waiting for it to be opened for him. The message was clear. I will not be announced like a supplicant. The throne room beyond was vast and shadowed, lit only by the pale glow of Coruscant's cityscape through the towering windows. And there, seated on a throne of dark stone, was Emperor Palpatine. Vergil's first impression was of age, ancient, withered, the skin like parchment stretched over bone. But appearances were deceiving. The power radiating from this figure made Vader's presence feel like a candle beside a star. The Force swirled around Palpatine like a living thing, concentrated and refined through decades of mastery. This was not merely a Force user. This was the dark side given flesh. Yellow eyes, pupils like burning coals, fixed on Vergil with an intensity that had broken stronger wills than most beings possessed. Approach, Palpatine commanded, his voice a rasp that somehow filled the enormous chamber. Vergil walked forward with measured steps, neither hurrying nor hesitating, until he stood 10 meters from the throne, close enough for conversation, far enough to draw Yamato if necessary. He did not kneel. Palpatine's eyes narrowed fractionally. Lord Vader informs me you are an anomaly, a being who exists outside the Force's influence, yet wields power comparable to a Sith Lord. The Emperor's tone was conversational, almost grandfatherly, but Vergil sensed the predatory intelligence beneath. Tell me, stranger, where do you come from? Another dimension, Vergil replied bluntly. I arrived through an accident involving dimensional manipulation. Your galaxy is as alien to me as I am to it. Another dimension. Palpatine leaned forward, genuine interest flickering in his ancient eyes. The Force connects all things in this universe, binds the very fabric of reality itself, yet you claim to exist outside its touch. Fascinating. Tell me, can you sense it at all, the energy that flows through every living being? I sense it, Vergil confirmed. An ambient energy field connected to biological markers in your species. Your people channel it, manipulate it, use it to enhance physical capabilities and manifest external effects. But it's not my power. My strength comes from within, from my father's bloodline, from my demonic heritage. Demonic, the Emperor tasted the word. You are a hybrid then, part human, part something else. And this something else grants you abilities that transcend our natural laws. It grants me the strength I need, nothing more, nothing less. Palpatine's smile was a horrible thing, like a corpse's rictus. Strength, the eternal obsession of the young and ambitious. Tell me, Vergil, and yes, Lord Vader shared your name. What is it you seek in my galaxy? What drives you to challenge Imperial forces, defeat Inquisitors, and demand an audience with me? Vergil met those yellow eyes without flinching. Knowledge, power, understanding. In my dimension, I pursued strength to surpass my father, to prove my demonic heritage superior to my brother's humanity. Here, I find myself in a galaxy governed by laws I don't understand, populated by beings who wield an energy I cannot access. That is unacceptable. Unacceptable, Palpatine repeated, amusement coloring his tone. You believe you should be able to master the Force, despite being fundamentally incompatible with it. I believe nothing is beyond my reach if I'm willing to pay the price. Vergil's hand moved to rest on Yamato's hilt, not a threat but a statement. I've mastered my father's demonic power. I've wielded weapons that cut through dimensions. I've defeated beings that would consider your Force users children playing with toys. If the Force is truly the pinnacle of power in this galaxy, then I will understand it, master it, or prove it inferior to what I already possess. The throne room fell silent except for Vader's mechanical breathing. Palpatine studied Vergil with the intensity of a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. Then, slowly, he began to laugh, a dry, rasping sound that held no warmth. Magnificent, the Emperor said finally. Ambition without restraint, pride without humility, determination without doubt. You are more Sith in spirit than many who have studied the dark side for decades, Vergil. And yet you cannot touch the Force. Ironic, is it not? Irony is for those who have time for it. I don't. Palpatine's expression shifted, the grandfatherly amusement replaced by cold calculation. Then let us discuss practicalities. You want knowledge. I possess archives spanning millennia, Sith holocrons, Jedi texts, records of Force techniques both light and dark. You want power. I command an empire that spans the galaxy with resources beyond counting. And you want understanding. I am the greatest living master of the Force, capable of teaching you its secrets even if you can never wield it yourself. And what do you want in return? Vergil asked, because nothing came without cost. He knew that better than anyone. Your uniqueness, Palpatine replied immediately. You are a void in the Force, Vergil, invisible to precognition, immune to mental manipulation, resistant to direct Force attacks. Do you comprehend what that means? Every Jedi, every Force sensitive still alive in this galaxy relies on the Force for warning, for defense, for offense. Against you, they are blind, defenseless. The implication hung in the air like a blade. You want me to hunt Jedi for you, Vergil said flatly. I want you to eliminate the remaining threats to my empire, Palpatine corrected. There are still pockets of Jedi survivors, still Force sensitives who resist Imperial rule. My Inquisitors hunt them, yes, but the Inquisitors are limited. They were Jedi once, and they carry those weaknesses still. You have no such limitations. You could walk into a Jedi sanctuary and they would never sense your approach until Yamato was at their throats. Vergil considered this. He had no particular loyalty to the Jedi, beings he'd never met, practitioners of a philosophy he had no connection to. But the Emperor's proposition was transparent manipulation, an attempt to make him into a weapon. "I'm not interested in being your assassin," Vergil said. "I don't kill on command." Palpatine's smile didn't falter. "Then consider it an exchange of services. For every Jedi you eliminate, I grant you access to one Sith holocron. For every Force-sensitive sanctuary you destroy, I open one restricted archive. You want knowledge? I'm offering the accumulated wisdom of the Sith Order, secrets that have been guarded for millennia. All you have to do is remove obstacles that would be destroyed eventually anyway." It was a devil's bargain, and Vergil recognized it as such. But he also recognized the value of what was being offered. Sith holocrons could contain insights into power structures, dimensional manipulation, energy manipulation techniques that might apply to his demonic abilities. The Jedi were doomed regardless. The Empire had already won. Their destruction was inevitable. The question was whether Vergil's participation would weigh on what remained of his conscience. He thought of his brother Dante, who would refuse such an offer on principle, who valued honor and protection of the innocent above personal power. He thought of his mother, who had died to protect her sons, who had believed in compassion and mercy. And he thought of his father, Sparda, a demon who had betrayed his own kind for the sake of humanity, yet had wielded godlike power in doing so. What would Sparda do? The answer came immediately. Sparda would have found a third option, a path that didn't require compromise or servitude. But Vergil was not his father. "I'll consider your offer," Vergil said finally. "But I want a demonstration first. Show me one of these Sith holocrons. Let me judge whether your knowledge is worth the price you're asking." Palpatine's eyes gleamed. "A reasonable request. Lord Vader, retrieve the holocron of Darth Vader from the vault. Let our guests sample the wisdom of the ancient Sith." Vader actually bowed and departed. Vergil noted the subservience with distaste. Whatever Vader had been before, he was truly a servant now, bound by more than just his armor. Alone with the Emperor, Vergil felt the full weight of the dark side pressing down on the chamber. Palpatine made no overt move, but the Force itself seemed to constrict, like a python slowly tightening around its prey. It was a test, Vergil realized. The Emperor was attempting to crush him with pure dark side energy, to see if his immunity to direct Force attacks extended to environmental pressure. The Force pressed against Vergil like deep ocean water, trying to find any gap in his defenses, any weakness to exploit. It found nothing. Vergil stood unmoved, his demonic constitution rejecting the Force's influence as thoroughly as his body rejected poison. To Palpatine's senses, it must have been like trying to grip smoke. The power simply couldn't find purchase. "Impressive," Palpatine murmured. "Your immunity is absolute. I've encountered Force-resistant species before, the Yuuzhan Vong, certain silicon-based life forms, but none so completely divorced from the Force as you. You truly are a void, Vergil, a hole in the fabric of reality." "Flattery won't make me your servant, Emperor. I would never insult you with such crude manipulation." Palpatine leaned back on his throne. Fingers steepled. "No, you are too intelligent for that. So let me be honest with you in a way I rarely am with anyone. You are dangerous, Vergil. Dangerous to me, to the Sith, to the very concept of Force supremacy. If more beings like you existed in this galaxy, the entire power structure would collapse. The Jedi and Sith have ruled through Force mastery for millennia because nothing could challenge that mastery. You challenge it simply by existing. And yet you're offering me knowledge rather than trying to kill me." "Because I am pragmatic above all else," Palpatine replied. "You cannot be controlled through the Force. You cannot be manipulated through fear or ambition in the ways I usually employ. But you want something I possess, and I want something you can provide. That makes us potential allies, temporary though the arrangement may be. Until one of us betrays the other. Until circumstances change," Palpatine corrected with a smile. Betrayal implies broken trust. I trust no one, Vergil, and I suspect you extend the same courtesy to me. We can work together while our interests align, and part ways when they diverge. Or we can end this conversation now and spend the next months attempting to kill each other, a prospect neither of us would enjoy, I suspect. Vergil had to admit the Emperor had a point. He needed knowledge about this galaxy, and Palpatine had it. Fighting the entire Empire would be tedious, resource-intensive, and might not even get him what he wanted. A temporary alliance of convenience was logical. But he would need to be careful. This Emperor was no fool, and the dark side granted abilities Vergil didn't fully understand yet. One wrong move, one moment of weakness, and Palpatine would exploit it ruthlessly. Vader returned, carrying a pyramidal object that pulsed with dark energy, the holocron. He placed it on a pedestal between Vergil and the Emperor, then stepped back to his position beside the throne. The holocron of Darth Vader, Palpatine announced, an ancient Sith Lord who pursued immortality above all else. His knowledge includes techniques for essence transfer, life extension, and manipulating the boundary between life and death. Activate it. Vergil approached the holocron cautiously. The object was clearly designed to interface with Force users, but when he placed his hand on it, something unexpected happened. The holocron flickered, its internal mechanism struggling to process input from a non-Force sensitive. Then slowly, it adapted, the artificial intelligence within recognizing that something was interacting with it, even if that something couldn't channel the Force. A holographic figure materialized above the holocron, a Sith Lord in ancient armor, his face hidden behind a skull-like mask. "I am Darth Vader," the recording intoned. "Seeker of eternal life, master of the immortal science. If you have accessed this holocron, you seek what I sought, to transcend the limitations of mortal flesh." The recording continued, detailing techniques that were clearly designed for Force users. But interspersed with the Force-specific instructions were theoretical frameworks, philosophical treatises on the nature of life energy, discussions of consciousness transfer that could potentially apply to non-Force-based power systems. Vergil listened intently, his analytical mind cataloging information, cross-referencing it with his own knowledge of demonic power. There were parallels, surprising ones. The Sith's understanding of life energy bore similarities to demonic essence manipulation. Their techniques for binding power to physical objects echoed how devil arms functioned in his dimension. Different methodologies, but potentially compatible principles. "This is acceptable," Vergil said finally, deactivating the holocron. "Your knowledge has value, but I want clarification on the terms. You want me to eliminate Jedi? Fine. But I choose the targets, I choose the methods, and I walk away whenever I decide the arrangement is no longer beneficial. No contracts, no oaths, no binding agreements, just a temporary exchange of services." Palpatine's smile was genuine this time, amused by Vergil's insistence on maintaining independence even while accepting the offer. "Agreed. I will provide intelligence on Jedi locations. You will decide which to pursue. For each confirmed elimination, access to one holocron or archive. You may leave at any time, though I imagine curiosity will keep you engaged longer than you anticipate." "Don't count on it." "We shall see." The Emperor gestured, and a datapad floated across the room via telekinesis, stopping in front of Vergil. "Your first target, should you choose to accept it, a Jedi Knight named Kira Vantala, hiding on the outer rim world of Lothal. She operates a small sanctuary for Force-sensitive children, training them in secret. The Inquisitors have been unable to locate her precisely. She hides well, and the Force warns her of danger." Vergil took the datapad, studying the information. A teacher protecting children. Under other circumstances, it would almost be admirable. Dante would certainly refuse to harm someone like that. But Vergil was not Dante. "She won't sense me coming," Vergil said, more statement than question. "Not until it's far too late," Palpatine confirmed. That is your advantage, Vergil. You are death that cannot be foreseen, a blade that cuts without warning. Use it well. Vergil pocketed the datapad and turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Emperor. This arrangement works both ways. If I discover you're manipulating me, if you attempt to control me through any means, the deal ends and we become enemies. I suspect you're powerful enough to make that unpleasant for both of us. I would expect nothing less, Palpatine replied. Go, Vergil, hunt your prey, and when you return, we will discuss the deeper secrets of the Sith, knowledge that may even give you insight into your own demonic nature. As Vergil left the throne room, Vader falling into step behind him, the Emperor sat back on his throne and steepled his fingers, a satisfied expression on his withered face. What do you think of him, my old friend? Palpatine asked the empty air. From the shadows, another figure emerged, a crimson-skinned Sith pureblood, one of Palpatine's most trusted advisors, who had been observing through the Force the entire time. He is dangerous, my lord, the advisor said. A weapon that cannot be controlled, a power that cannot be predicted. Allying with him is a significant risk. Yes, Palpatine agreed, but risk and reward are twin siblings. If Vergil eliminates the remaining Jedi, my empire becomes truly unassailable. And if he proves troublesome, well, there are ways to eliminate even beings who exist outside the Force. Physical weapons, overwhelming numbers, orbital bombardment. He is powerful, but he is not invincible. And if he becomes too powerful, Palpatine's smile was predatory. Then I will have Lord Vader kill him or die in the attempt. Either outcome serves my purposes. In the shuttle bay, as Vergil prepared to depart for Lothal, Vader approached him one final time. You're making a mistake, the Dark Lord said quietly. The Emperor will use you, discard you, and destroy you when you're no longer useful. I know. I've watched it happen to others. Vergil looked at Vader, really looked at him, seeing past the armor to the broken man within. Then, why do you still serve him? Because I have nothing else, Vader admitted. And there was such emptiness in those words that even Vergil felt a moment of something that might have been pity. Then you're weaker than I thought, Vergil replied, not unkindly. Power without purpose is just slavery by another name, Vader. You should remember that. He boarded the shuttle without another word, leaving Darth Vader standing alone in the hangar bay, wrestling with truths he had spent decades trying to bury. As the shuttle lifted off and shot toward the stars, Vergil activated the datapad, studying the information about Kira Vantala, a Jedi, a teacher, a protector of children. The kind of person his mother would have approved of. The kind of person Dante would defend. Vergil's hand tightened on the datapad, just for a moment, before his expression returned to its usual cold mask. He had made his choice. Power and knowledge obtained through any means necessary. That was who he was. That was who he had always been. He would not apologize for it. The shuttle entered hyperspace, carrying the Dark Slayer toward his first hunt in a galaxy far from home. Behind him, Coruscant gleamed like a jewel, beautiful and corrupt, ruled by an emperor who commanded the darkness itself. And ahead of him, on a distant outer rim world, a Jedi Knight meditated with her students, completely unaware that death was approaching. Death that moved in absolute silence, invisible to the Force, wielded by a blade that could cut through destiny itself. The hunt had begun. Lothal's grassland stretched to the horizon, golden wheat-like crops swaying in the wind beneath twin suns. To most observers, the abandoned communications tower on the outskirts of Capital City was just another relic of the Clone Wars, forgotten, irrelevant, slowly being reclaimed by nature. But to those sensitive to the Force, it pulsed with quiet light, a beacon of hope in an empire-dominated galaxy. Inside the tower's reinforced lower levels, Jedi Knight Kira Vantala guided 6 children through meditation exercises, her voice calm and patient despite the constant vigilance required to keep them all safe. "Feel the Force flowing through you," she instructed, her own presence in the Force carefully suppressed to avoid detection. "It connects all living things, the grass outside, the loth cats in the fields, each other. Through the Force, we are never alone." The children, ranging from 6 to 12 years old, refugees from across the galaxy whose Force sensitivity had marked them as targets, sat in a circle, their faces screwed up in concentration. A Twi'lek girl managed to levitate a training remote a few centimeters. A human boy sensed his neighbor's emotions and smiled. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Kira had been teaching for 3 years now, ever since escaping the Jedi Temple during Order 66. She'd watched her master cut down by clone troopers, felt the deaths of thousands of Jedi across the galaxy like wounds in the Force. She should have died that day. Perhaps part of her had. But the Force had guided her here, to these children who needed her, and she would protect them with her life. She didn't sense the danger approaching. How could she? The Force showed her nothing. No warning, no disturbance, no premonition of death. Just the peaceful afternoon continuing as it had for 1,000 afternoons before. Vergil stood on the tower's perimeter, studying the structure through narrowed eyes. The datapad had provided schematics, outdated from before the Clone Wars, but serviceable. The building had been reinforced, blast doors added, security systems installed. All of it designed to provide warning and defense against Imperial forces. All of it useless against him. He'd spent the 3-day hyperspace journey from Coruscant studying everything the Empire had on the Jedi. Their philosophy, their techniques, their weaknesses. They were monks, essentially, ascetic warriors who suppressed emotion and attachment in pursuit of harmony with this Force. Admirable discipline, perhaps, but it made them predictable. They would sense danger through the Force, trust in its warnings, believe themselves protected by their precognition. Vergil was the danger precognition couldn't see. He walked toward the tower's main entrance with measured steps, Yamato sheathed at his side, his blue coat snapping in Lothal's wind. The security cameras tracked him automatically, but no alarm sounded. He was just another traveler, nothing remarkable, certainly nothing threatening enough to wake a sleeping Jedi's danger sense. The blast doors were sealed, magnetically locked, designed to withstand anything short of orbital bombardment. Vergil placed his hand on the cold metal, feeling the electromagnetic field humming through it, then drew Yamato in a single fluid motion. The blade sang, reality parted. Vergil didn't cut through the door. That would have been crude, unnecessary. Instead, Yamato's edge severed the space between him and the interior, creating a dimensional rift just large enough to step through. He walked through the door as if it didn't exist, the dimensional cut sealing behind him without a trace. Inside, the tower was quiet. Emergency lighting cast everything in amber shadows. Vergil's enhanced senses cataloged his surroundings, reinforced walls, hidden weapon caches, supplies for extended siege. The Jedi had prepared well. It wouldn't matter. He descended deeper, following the faint sound of voices. His footsteps made no sound, not through any supernatural stealth, but through simple physical control. Each movement was precise, calculated, wasting no energy on unnecessary noise. 3 levels down, he found them. The meditation chamber was circular, lit by glow panels that approximated natural sunlight. The children sat in their circle, and at the center, a woman in worn Jedi robes guided their training. She was young, mid-20s perhaps, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, a lightsaber hanging from her belt but not in hand. Her face carried the weight of someone who had seen too much death too young. Vergil stood in the doorway, studying her with clinical interest. This was a Jedi Knight, one of the galaxy's legendary peacekeepers, supposedly the pinnacle of Force mastery and lightsaber skill. She looked tired, afraid, underneath the calm facade, determined to protect her students even knowing the Empire would eventually find her. She didn't sense him. The Force provided no warning because he didn't exist within its web. To her danger sense, he was no more threatening than the walls or the air. One of the children noticed him first, a young human girl who happened to glance toward the door. Her eyes widened. Master Kira, theirs. Kira's head snapped up, her hand moving to her lightsaber with trained reflexes. The weapon ignited in a flash of green light as she placed herself between Vergil and her students. Her stance textbook form III Sorsu, defensive, protective, designed to shield others. "Children behind me," she commanded, her voice steady despite the fear Vergil could see in her eyes. She was reading his body language, his posture, recognizing a predator when she saw one even if the Force told her nothing. "Who are you? How did you get past our defenses?" "My name is irrelevant," Vergil replied, his hand resting on Yamato's hilt. "The Emperor sent me to eliminate Jedi survivors. You are Kira Vantala. These are Force-sensitive children you're training in secret. I'm here to end that." Kira's grip tightened on her lightsaber. "I won't let you harm them." "I don't expect you to." Vergil drew Yamato in a blur of motion, the blade clearing its sheath and settling into a ready stance in less than a second. "But your expectations are irrelevant to the outcome." She attacked because what choice did she have? Her lightsaber arced toward him in a defensive strike meant to test his abilities, probe his defenses. Behind her, the children scrambled toward the chamber's back exit. Good. She trained them to run when necessary. Vergil met her blade with Yamato, and the familiar shower of sparks erupted. Kira's eyes widened as she felt the resistance, the wrongness of it. Her lightsaber should cut through any conventional material, but this blade rejected it completely, meeting plasma with something that existed partially outside normal space. She flowed into form IV Adaru, using Force-enhanced acrobatics to attack from multiple angles. Trying to overwhelm him with speed and unpredictability, she leaped over him, struck from behind, rolled to his left, thrust toward his kidney. Each movement enhanced by the Force, faster than human reflexes should allow. Vergil matched her without drawing on anything supernatural, pure skill and demonic physiology keeping pace with Force-enhanced technique. His counters were economical, never overextending, each parry flowing naturally into the next defensive position. "You're skilled," he observed, sidestepping a particularly creative spinning attack. "But you're afraid. That fear makes you slower than you should be." "I'm not afraid for myself," Kira gasped, pressing her assault even as she recognized she was outmatched. "Those children are innocent. They've done nothing wrong." "Their innocence is irrelevant. They're Force-sensitive. The Emperor wants them dead." Vergil's blade flickered out, Yamato's tip passing within centimeters of Kira's throat, forcing her to abort her attack and leap backward. "You know the Empire will never stop hunting them. I'm just the first to find you. Others will follow." "Then I'll stop you." Kira reached out with the Force, trying to grip Vergil telekinetically, to slam him against the walls or collapse the ceiling on him. The Force answered her call, debris and furniture beginning to levitate, all of it directed at him. And stopped. The Force couldn't grip him, couldn't touch him, couldn't even acknowledge his existence. The debris hovered uselessly while Vergil stood untouched in the center of the chaos. "Impossible," Kira whispered. "Your Force means nothing to me." Vergil's tone held no malice, just statement of fact. "You cannot sense me, cannot predict my movements, cannot manipulate me directly. Every advantage your order possessed against conventional opponents is gone. You're just a woman with a plasma sword fighting someone faster, stronger, and more experienced." Kira knew he was right, but she also knew she couldn't give up, couldn't stop fighting, because the moment she fell, nothing would stop this man from walking to that back room and executing her students one by one. So she channeled the Force into her body, pushing past her physical limits, moving with desperate speed born of pure determination. Her lightsaber became a green blur, striking from angles that should have been impossible, combinations that had taken years to master. Vergil was forced to focus, his analytical mind tracking each strike, calculating trajectories, reading her body language for hints of her next move. She was genuinely skilled, better than the Inquisitors, perhaps even better than some of the opponents he'd faced in his own dimension. Under other circumstances, he might have enjoyed this duel. But there were no other circumstances. Just a mission, a target, and the knowledge waiting for him on Coruscant. He ended it with judgment cut. The technique was so fast Kira didn't see it coming. Vergil drew and sheathed Yamato in a motion that left dimensional slashes hanging in the air between them. Her lightsaber, raised in a defensive position, was cut cleanly in half. The kyber crystal within shattered, releasing a pulse of energy that sent her stumbling backward. Before she could recover, Vergil closed the distance, Yamato's hilt striking her temple in a precise blow calculated to stun rather than kill. She crumpled, unconscious but alive. The chamber fell silent, except for Vergil's controlled breathing. He stood over the fallen Jedi, Yamato held loosely in his hand, and for a long moment he didn't move. The children were in the back room. He could hear their terrified breathing, their muffled sobs. It would take minutes to reach them, seconds to execute them all. Quick, clean, efficient. The Emperor's orders were clear. Eliminate the Jedi and any Force sensitives she was training. Vergil's hand tightened on Yamato's hilt. He thought of his mother, who had protected him and Dante from demons with her life. He thought of the children in his own past, caught in demonic attacks, killed as collateral damage in battles between beings far more powerful than them. He thought of what his brother would say if he could see this moment. "You're better than this, Vergil. You've always been better than this." But was he? He'd pursued power at the expense of his humanity. He'd done terrible things in his obsession to surpass his father. Adding 6 children to that list should be trivial. They were going to die anyway, if not by his hand, then by an Inquisitor's or an orbital strike, or simply being discovered and executed by stormtroopers. Their deaths were inevitable. He would just be accelerating the process. Vergil looked down at Kira's unconscious form, at the shattered remains of her lightsaber, at the symbol of hope she represented to those children hiding in terror. And for the first time since arriving in this galaxy, he questioned whether the Emperor's knowledge was worth this price. He heard footsteps behind him, the children emerging from their hiding place despite their fear. The oldest, a Zabrak boy of perhaps 12, stood at the front, a training lightsaber gripped in shaking hands. "Don't hurt Master Kira," the boy said, voice cracking with terror but holding steady. "Please, if you have to kill someone, kill me, but let the others go. They're just kids." Vergil turned to face them fully, and 6 pairs of eyes stared back at him. Human, Twi'lek, Togruta, Zabrak, all of them Force-sensitive, all of them marked for death, all of them showing more courage than beings 3 times their age. "You'd die for them?" Vergil asked the Zabrak boy. "Master Kira says that's what Jedi do," the boy replied, his training saber raised in a pathetic imitation of a proper guard. "We protect people who can't protect themselves, even if it costs us everything." "And you believe that? You think sacrifice has meaning?" "Master Kira says it does." The boy's eyes flickered to his unconscious teacher. "She says the Force shows us we're all connected, that when we help others, we help ourselves, that even if we die, we become part of something bigger." Vergil stared at the child, seeing echoes of his brother in that naive idealism, that willingness to sacrifice for strangers. Dante had always been like that, throwing himself into danger for people he'd never met, believing in concepts like heroism and justice that Vergil had dismissed as weakness. But perhaps it took a different kind of strength to stand before overwhelming power and choose compassion over survival. Vergil sheathed Yamato in a single fluid motion. The sound of the blade clicking home seemed unnaturally loud in the tense silence. "Your teacher lives," he said finally. You all live. Consider it a temporary reprieve." The children stared at him in shock, unable to process what they were hearing. "I don't understand," the Zabrak boy whispered. "Neither do I," Vergil admitted. He pulled out the datapad, accessing the Imperial intelligence files on this location. With a few quick inputs, he corrupted the data, making it appear that this lead had been another dead end, that Kira Vantala was long gone from Lothal. It wouldn't hold up under serious scrutiny, but it would buy time. He looked at the children one last time. "Your teacher will wake in approximately 1 hour. When she does, tell her to leave this world immediately. Go somewhere the Empire doesn't control, outer rim, unknown regions, somewhere they won't think to look. And tell her to stop training Force sensitives. The galaxy is too dangerous for that now. Let them live normal lives, hidden and safe." "But without training, how will they?" "Surviving is more important than training," Vergil interrupted. "The Jedi lost, the Empire won. Accept that reality and adapt to it. That's how you stay alive." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Your teacher's lightsaber is destroyed. She'll need a new weapon. There's a black market dealer in Capital City, Ezra Bridger's old contact, name of Vizago. He deals in pre-Empire Jedi artifacts. She'll know who I mean." The Zabrak boy nodded slowly, still processing everything. "Why are you helping us?" Vergil didn't have a good answer to that. He'd come here to kill them, to trade their lives for knowledge, to prove that his pursuit of power transcended morality. But standing in this chamber, looking at children who would die simply for being born with an extra sense, he'd felt something he thought he'd killed years ago: doubt. "Consider it a moment of weakness," Vergil said finally. "Don't expect it to happen again." He walked out of the meditation chamber, leaving the children clustered around their unconscious teacher, confusion and hope warring on their young faces. Back on his shuttle, Vergil sat in the pilot's chair and stared at the datapad in his hand. He should report success to the Emperor, claim the kill, gain access to the next holocron, continue climbing the ladder of Sith knowledge. Instead, he encrypted a message: target location compromised before arrival. Jedi escaped, trail cold, investigating other leads. It was a lie, the first lie he'd told since arriving in this galaxy. He sent the message before he could reconsider, watching it shoot through hyperspace toward Coruscant. The Emperor would be disappointed. Vader would be suspicious. But they couldn't prove anything. Vergil existed outside the Force, which meant they couldn't read his intentions or verify his claims through any supernatural means. He'd bought Kira Vantala time. What she did with it was her concern, not his. Vergil set course for the unknown regions, away from Imperial space, giving himself time to think. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace, and he sat alone in the cockpit, Yamato resting across his knees, contemplating what he'd just done. He hadn't shown mercy. He didn't believe in mercy. He'd simply made a calculation. The children's deaths would have served no purpose except proving loyalty to an emperor he didn't serve, and loyalty without benefit was just slavery. At least, that's what he told himself. But part of him, the part that still remembered his mother's smile, that still heard Dante's voice calling him brother despite everything, knew the truth. He'd walked into that chamber as his father's son, pursuing power above all else. He'd walked out as his mother's son, unable to execute children who'd done nothing wrong. The duality that had defined his entire existence, still tearing him in two even in this alien galaxy. On Coruscant, Emperor Palpatine read Vergil's report with narrowed eyes. The words were professional, the explanation plausible, but something felt wrong. He'd sensed no deception, because he couldn't sense Vergil through the Force at all, but his instincts. Honed through decades of manipulation, detected inconsistency. "Lord Vader," he called. The Dark Lord materialized from the shadows. "My master." "Our friend Vergil reports failure. His first target escaped before he arrived. How unfortunate." Vader's mechanical breathing filled the silence. "You suspect he's lying." "I suspect he's more complicated than he appears," Palpatine corrected. "Power without conscience is a weapon. Power with conscience is a wild card. We must determine which he truly is." "Should I investigate?" "Not yet. Give him another target, something simpler, less morally complex. A Jedi who has killed Imperials, shed blood, become a legitimate threat. Let us see if Vergil's supposed failure repeats itself." Vader bowed. "As you command, Master." After Vader left, Palpatine sat alone in his throne room, fingers steepled, yellow eyes gleaming with calculation. Vergil was a fascinating puzzle, a being of immense power who existed outside the Force's natural laws, yet who apparently possessed something resembling a conscience. Useful if properly manipulated, dangerous if allowed to develop principles. The Emperor would need to be careful, but then again, he always was. In the unknown regions, Vergil's shuttle drifted through empty space while he meditated in the cargo hold. Yamato laid across his lap. His demonic power swirled around him, blue-black energy responding to his will, and he examined the choice he'd made with the same clinical detachment he applied to everything. He deviated from the path of power, allowed sentiment to influence strategy. That was weakness by any objective measure. And yet he felt no regret. Perhaps this galaxy was changing him, or perhaps he was finally admitting what he'd always been beneath the obsession and the pride. His father's son, yes, but also his mother's, carrying both demon and human within him, both hunger for power and capacity for mercy. Dante would be insufferably pleased if he knew. Vergil opened his eyes, the meditation complete, his resolve crystallizing. He would continue engaging with the Emperor, but on his own terms. He would hunt Jedi when they deserved hunting, when they posed genuine threats, but he would not be an executioner of children. The Empire would get a weapon, but not the one they expected. And perhaps, in this galaxy ruled by the Force, a being outside its influence could forge a different path, one that didn't require choosing between absolute power and absolute compassion, one that acknowledged both the demon and the human. It was a naive thought, something Dante would embrace. But for the first time in years, Vergil allowed himself to consider it. Yamato hummed softly in his lap, as if approving the decision, and Vergil's hand rested on the legendary blade that had carried him between dimensions. The hunt would continue, but the prey would be chosen carefully. The Son of Sparda had learned his first lesson in the Star Wars galaxy. Some prices were too high, even for power. Whether that lesson would save him or destroy him remained to be seen. 3 months. Vergil had spent 3 months navigating the political labyrinth of the Empire, accepting targets from Palpatine, hunting Jedi across the galaxy. But he developed a pattern, a careful selection process that the Emperor couldn't quite prove but certainly suspected. The Jedi who had slaughtered an Imperial garrison in a fit of dark side corruption. Dead within a week, Yamato's dimensional cut severing him before he could spread more destruction. The fallen Padawan who'd become a warlord, enslaving entire systems through Force domination. Eliminated, his fortress carved open like a surgical incision. The Jedi Shadow who'd been assassinating Imperial officials and leaving bombs in civilian centers. Intercepted mid-mission, cut down before he could detonate another charge. But the healers hiding on backwater worlds, the archivists preserving Jedi knowledge in secret, the teachers protecting Force-sensitive children. Somehow, inexplicably, these targets always slipped through Vergil's fingers. Bad intelligence, faulty coordinates, targets relocating before his arrival. The Emperor wasn't fooled, but he also couldn't prove Vergil was deliberately choosing which Jedi to kill and which to allow escape. And the targets Vergil did eliminate were high value enough that Palpatine continued granting access to Sith holocrons, each one providing fragments of knowledge about Force theory, ancient power techniques, dimensional manipulation. Vergil had studied them all with the intensity he brought to everything. He couldn't wield the Force, but understanding its principles gave him insights into his own demonic abilities. The Sith's philosophy of emotion-fueled power resonated with his devil trigger mechanics. Their techniques for essence transfer parallel demonic possession. Their understanding of life energy complemented his knowledge of demonic vitality. He was becoming something new, a synthesis of his demonic heritage and Sith philosophy, bound by neither but drawing from both. But the arrangement was fracturing. Palpatine grew increasingly suspicious. Vader watched him with unreadable intent, and the Inquisitors, jealous of his success and frustrated by their own failures, had begun plotting against him. It all came to a head on Christophsis. The crystal planet glittered beneath twin moons, its geometric formations catching starlight and refracting it into prismatic beauty. Once a battleground of the Clone Wars, Christophsis had been abandoned by both Republic and Separatists, left to the scavengers and smugglers who valued its isolation. The perfect hiding place for a Jedi Council member. Vergil stood on a crystalline cliff, studying the fortress built into the planet's largest formation. According to Imperial intelligence, Jedi Master Tera Sinub had survived Order 66 and established a sanctuary here, not for training new Jedi, but for preserving the Order's history. Holocrons, ancient texts, records of techniques that would otherwise be lost forever. The datapad showed Sinub's profile: elderly, a master of form Aishicho, renowned for his patience and investigative skills. A scholar warrior who had trained Padawans for over 2 centuries. No record of violence against Imperial forces. No aggressive actions at all. Simply an old Jedi trying to save his Order's legacy before dying. Vergil should have walked away. By his own criteria, Sinub wasn't a threat that needed elimination. But the Sith holocron promised in exchange for this kill was special. The holocron of Darth Vader, a Sith Lord who had walked both light and dark, who had mastered techniques that transcended traditional Force boundaries. Knowledge that might finally give Vergil insight into bridging his human and demonic natures. The price was one old Jedi's life. Vergil began walking toward the fortress, Yamato secured at his side, his expression carved from ice. He made it halfway before the ambush triggered. Lightsabers ignited around him, 8 of them, crimson and spinning. The Inquisitors emerged from behind crystal formations, their dark robes blending with the shadows, their presence in the Force coordinated and deadly. Going somewhere, Anomaly, the Grand Inquisitor stepped forward, his gaunt face twisted in a smile. The Emperor suspected you might try to warn Master Sinub, so he asked us to ensure you complete your mission properly. Vergil stopped, his hand moving to Yamato's hilt with deliberate slowness. I work alone, Inquisitor. That was the arrangement. Arrangements change. Another Inquisitor, the scarred woman from Mustafar, circled to his left. You've been letting targets escape. Don't think we haven't noticed. The Emperor tolerates it because you eliminate enough real threats, but your selective hunting ends today. Today, the Grand Inquisitor continued, you kill Master Sinub in front of witnesses, or we report to Lord Vader that you're actively protecting Jedi. And then even your unique abilities won't save you from the Empire's full attention. Vergil's eyes tracked each Inquisitor, calculating positions, threat assessments, tactical options. 8 opponents, all Force-sensitive, all trained in lightsaber combat. Individually inferior to him, but their coordination was excellent. They'd clearly studied his fighting style, learned from the survivors of his previous encounters. And if I refuse? Vergil asked, though he already knew the answer. Then we kill you here and report that you died heroically fighting Master Sinub. The Grand Inquisitor's smile widened. Your corpse is almost as useful to us as your compliance. Perhaps more so. It would eliminate a problem we've been wanting to solve for months. The Inquisitors wanted him dead. That was clear enough. They'd grown tired of being overshadowed by an outsider, frustrated that their Force abilities meant nothing against him, resentful of the Emperor's attention he commanded. This was an execution disguised as an ultimatum. Vergil's hand tightened on Yamato's hilt. "I see. Then let me clarify something for you, Inquisitors. I am not your ally, I am not your subordinate, and I am certainly not your victim." He drew Yamato in a blur of motion, the blade singing from its sheath. "If you want my death, come and claim it, but I promise you, some of you won't leave this planet." The Grand Inquisitor's smile faded. "Kill him." They attacked as one, a coordinated assault that would have overwhelmed most opponents. Lightsabers struck from 8 directions simultaneously, their spinning blades creating a web of crimson death that left no escape route. Vergil activated his devil trigger. The transformation was instant, demonic power flooding his system, his appearance shifting as his true nature manifested. His eyes blazed with blue-white light. His aura became visible, a corona of blue-black energy that distorted the air around him. His speed doubled, his strength tripled. His already formidable abilities pushed into supernatural territory. The cost was enormous. Without ambient demonic energy to sustain the transformation, he was burning through his internal reserves at an alarming rate. He could maintain this state for perhaps 5 minutes before exhaustion forced him back to normal. 5 minutes would be enough. He became a blur of motion, Yamato cutting through lightsaber strikes with contemptuous ease. The dimensional blade didn't just parry, it severed the Force connections the Inquisitors used to coordinate their attacks, creating micro-rifts in space that disrupted their formation. The first Inquisitor fell in 3 seconds, Yamato's edge opening his throat before he could raise a Force barrier. The second lasted 5 seconds longer, managing to block twice before a summoned sword punched through his eye socket. "Impossible," the Grand Inquisitor screamed, his arrogance transforming into genuine fear. "What are you?" "I am my father's son," Vergil replied, his voice distorted by the demonic transformation, carrying harmonics that shouldn't exist in human vocal cords. "And you have made a terminal mistake." He accelerated, moving faster than even Force-enhanced perception could track. Yamato became a silver streak in the moonlight, each strike placed with surgical precision. An Inquisitor's lightsaber was cut in half. Another's arm was severed at the elbow. A third was impaled through the chest, Yamato's dimensional edge punching through armor and flesh with equal ease. The scarred Inquisitor from Mustafar tried to flee, using the Force to enhance her speed, but Vergil manifested a summoned sword directly in her path. She ran onto the spectral blade, momentum driving it through her sternum. She collapsed, gasping, dying. In 90 seconds, 7 Inquisitors lay dead or dying among the crystal formations. Only the Grand Inquisitor remained, his lightsaber shaking in his hands, his Force presence shrinking as terror overwhelmed training. "Please," he whispered, "I was following orders the Emperor commanded." "The Emperor sent you to test me," Vergil interrupted, his devil trigger already fatting as the energy cost became too high. His appearance returned to normal, but his eyes still blazed with cold fury. "To see if I could be controlled through threat. You've provided my answer." He sheathed Yamato without cleaning it, the dimensional blade rejecting the blood coating it, leaving the steel pristine. "Tell your Emperor this. I will continue hunting Jedi who deserve hunting. I will not be threatened, manipulated, or controlled. If he finds these terms unacceptable, he can send his entire Inquisitorius after me. I'll kill them all." "He'll send Lord Vader," the Grand Inquisitor gasped. "Or come himself. You can't fight the Emperor. He commands the dark side itself." "Then I look forward to discovering whether the dark side is superior to demonic power." Vergil turned away, dismissing the Grand Inquisitor as irrelevant. "Go, run to Coruscant, deliver my message, and be grateful I have no interest in killing messengers today." The Grand Inquisitor fled, his force-enhanced leap carrying him toward the ship they'd hidden beyond the crystal formations. Within seconds, he was gone, running like the coward he'd always been beneath the bluster. Vergil stood alone among the bodies, breathing hard, the cost of the devil trigger transformation weighing on him. Without ambient demonic energy, using his full power was like sprinting while holding his breath, effective but unsustainable. He needed to find a solution to that limitation, but for now, he had a more immediate problem. The noise of the battle would have alerted Master Sinu. The old Jedi was surely preparing defenses, possibly evacuating, definitely aware that someone had come to kill him. Vergil could leave, warn Sinub to flee, corrupt the Imperial intelligence on this location, let another target escape. The Emperor would know, of course, but couldn't prove anything. Or he could complete the mission. Kill one old Jedi and gain access to Darth Vader's holocron, knowledge that might finally help him understand how to bridge light and dark, human and demon, power and principle. One life for knowledge, the same calculation he'd faced on Lothal. Vergil began walking toward the fortress, still undecided, letting his feet carry him while his mind wrestled with the choice. He found Master Sinub in the central archive, surrounded by holocrons and ancient texts, placing them carefully into a storage container. The old Jedi, small and hunched, his skin pale green and lined with age, didn't look up at Vergil's approach. "I sense the battle outside," Sinub said, his voice reedy but calm. "7 Inquisitors dead, 1 fled. Impressive. You must be the one they call the anomaly, the assassin who exists outside the Force." "Vergil," he corrected, "and yes, I'm here to kill you." "I suspected as much." Sinub finally looked up, his large eyes meeting Vergil's without fear. "Though I must admit, I sense no malice from you. Determination, yes. Conflict, certainly. But not the hatred or cruelty I'd expect from an Imperial assassin. My emotions are irrelevant. The Emperor wants you dead, and I need what he's offering in exchange." "The holocron of Darth Vader," Sinub said, surprising Vergil. "Yes, I know. I was a Jedi investigator for 2 centuries, young man. I make it my business to know things. You're trading my life for knowledge about a Sith Lord who walked both light and dark, seeking understanding of how to balance opposing natures." Vergil's hand moved to Yamato's hilt. "If you know all that, then you know I'll kill you if necessary." "Will you?" Sinub secured the last holocron, then straightened as much as his aged frame allowed. "I wonder. You've let other Jedi escape, teachers, healers, archivists like myself. You kill only those who have embraced violence, who have harmed innocents, who have become the very thing the Jedi swore to oppose. That suggests principles, Vergil. Selective ones, perhaps, but principles nonetheless." "Pragmatism, not principles," Vergil corrected. "I have no loyalty to the Jedi or the Empire. I do what serves my interests." "And yet you're conflicted right now." Sinub's large eyes held surprising sharpness. "I cannot sense you through the Force, but I don't need the Force to read body language, microexpressions, hesitation. You don't want to kill me, but you want that holocron desperately enough to consider it." Vergil said nothing, which was answer enough. Sinub smiled sadly. "Then let me make this easier for you. I'm dying, Vergil. Cancer spreading through my organs, inoperable by any medical technology available. I have perhaps 3 months left, most of it in increasing pain. I've been preparing my archives for transfer to other survivors, ensuring the Jedi Order's knowledge isn't lost when I pass. You expect me to believe you'd give up 3 months of life voluntarily. 3 months of pain and diminishing capacity." Sinub gestured at the fortress around them. "I've lived 247 years. I've trained dozens of Padawans. I've preserved knowledge that would otherwise vanish. If my death serves a purpose, if it grants you the understanding to become something better than a mere assassin, then those 3 months are a small price." He pulled a data cylinder from his robes, offering it to Vergil. The coordinates to 3 other Jedi sanctuaries, not combat-ready Jedi, just survivors like me trying to preserve what we can. Promise me you'll let them continue their work and I'll go peacefully. No fight, no resistance. You get your holocron and I get the satisfaction of knowing my death meant something. Vergil stared at the data cylinder, understanding the trap even as he recognized the elegance of it. If he took this trade, 1 life for 3 spared, he was admitting that Jedi lives had value beyond their tactical relevance. He was acknowledging that preservation of knowledge mattered, that some missions were worth more than individual survival. He was, in short, accepting that he had principles beyond pure self-interest. "You're manipulating me," Vergil said quietly. "Yes," Sinub agreed without shame. "I've been a Jedi investigator for 2 centuries. Manipulation is part of the job, though we preferred to call it persuasion. But I'm also telling you the truth. I am dying. Those coordinates do lead to archivists who pose no threat, and you are capable of being more than the Emperor's weapon. The question is whether you'll accept it." Vergil took the data cylinder, weighing it in his hand. 3 sanctuaries, 3 chances to undermine the Empire's systematic destruction of Jedi knowledge, all for the price of 1 old Jedi's life, a life already measured in months. "If I let you live, I lose access to Darth Vader's holocron," Vergil said. "That knowledge could be vital to understanding my own nature." "Perhaps," Sinub acknowledged. "Or perhaps true understanding comes not from ancient holocrons, but from the choices we make when faced with impossible decisions. Darth Vader found balance by experiencing both light and dark, yes, but the experience mattered more than any technique. You're already walking that path, Vergil. You just haven't admitted it yet." Vergil closed his fist around the data cylinder. "You should leave Christophsis. The Empire knows about this location. Others will come." Sinub's smile widened. "I'm 80% packed already. I'll be gone within the hour, archives secured. And those 3 sanctuaries in your hand, they'll know to relocate as well thanks to your warning." "I didn't warn them." "But you will, because underneath the pride and the obsession with power, you're your mother's son as much as your father's. And mothers teach compassion, even when fathers teach strength." Vergil turned to leave, unwilling to continue this conversation, uncomfortable with how easily this old Jedi had read him. At the doorway, he paused without looking back. "The Grand Inquisitor fled to Coruscant. He'll tell the Emperor I killed his team and refused to complete the mission. Vader will come for me, possibly Palpatine himself. Then I suppose you'll face the most powerful Force users in the galaxy without being able to touch the Force yourself," Sinub observed. "That should be an interesting test of whether demonic power can match the dark side's mastery." "It's not a test, it's an inevitability." Vergil's hand rested on Yamato's hilt. "But when it happens, I won't be the Emperor's assassin or the Jedi's enemy. I'll be what I've always been, my own master, beholden to no one." "Then may the Force be with you," Sinub said gently. "Even if you cannot touch it, perhaps it watches over those who walk difficult paths." Vergil left without responding, walking through the fortress and out into Christophsis's crystalline landscape. Behind him, Master Sinub continued packing his archives, already planning his evacuation, grateful for 3 more months he hadn't expected to receive. On Vergil's shuttle racing toward the unknown regions, he studied the data cylinder's contents. 3 sanctuaries just as Sinub promised. Archivists, historians, preservationists. No warriors, no threats. He encrypted warnings to each location, advising immediate relocation. The messages were anonymous, untraceable, but effective. Then he composed his report to the Emperor. Mission failed. Target escaped. Inquisitor ambush compromised position. 7 Inquisitors dead, 1 fled. Continuing operations independently. It was the truth, carefully edited. He had failed to kill Sinub. The Inquisitors had ambushed him. 7 were dead. He just hadn't mentioned that Sinub's survival was deliberate, or that the Inquisitors' deaths were self-defense against an execution. The message sent, Vergil sat in the pilot's chair and contemplated the future he'd just chosen. By defying the Emperor openly, by killing Inquisitors, by letting another target escape, he'd crossed a line. Palpatine would no longer tolerate his selective obedience. War was coming. Vader would hunt him. The full might of the Empire might be deployed. And Vergil would face it alone, without allies, without the Force, armed only with his demonic heritage and a blade that cut through dimensions. His brother would call him an idiot for making this choice. His father would question the strategic wisdom. His mother would understand, would approve, would recognize the humanity he was finally acknowledging. Vergil pulled up the Imperial database on Darth Vader, studying every recorded detail about the Dark Lord. If combat was inevitable, he needed to understand his opponent completely. Vader's fighting style, his Force techniques, his weaknesses, all of it. The database was extensive, but Vergil's analytical mind cataloged it rapidly. Vader was a gem-so-master, relying on powerful strikes and overwhelming offense. He used the Force to enhance his physical capabilities, to dominate opponents' minds, to manipulate the environment. He was ruthless, experienced, and had killed countless Jedi. But he relied on the Force completely. His precognition, his danger sense, his ability to read opponents, all of it depended on that cosmic energy. Against Vergil, Vader would be blind. Powerful, yes, skilled, certainly, but blind. It would be the fight of Vergil's life, and he found himself looking forward to it with the same cold anticipation he brought to every true challenge. The shuttle jumped to hyperspace, carrying him away from Christophsis and toward an uncertain future. Behind him, the Empire mobilized. Ahead of him, destiny waited in the form of a black-armored Dark Lord and an Emperor who commanded darkness itself. Vergil's hand rested on Yamato's hilt, feeling the legendary blade's power thrumming through it. Let them come. He was the son of Sparda, wielder of Yamato, walker of the line between demon and human. If the Empire wanted war, he would give them war. And in the crucible of that conflict, he would discover whether his choices on Lothal and Christophsis represented weakness or a different kind of strength. The strength to have power and choose restraint, to pursue knowledge without sacrificing principle. His father had walked that path once, betraying demonkind to protect humanity. Perhaps it was time for the son to prove himself worthy of that legacy, even in a galaxy far from home. The stars streaked past in hyperspace, and Vergil meditated in the cargo hold, preparing for the battles ahead. The hunt had evolved. Now he was both hunter and hunted. And the galaxy would tremble before the storm that was coming. Vergil allowed himself a rare smile, cold but genuine. He'd come to the Star Wars galaxy by accident, been tested by its challenges, tempered by its conflicts. He was leaving stronger than he'd arrived, not in raw power, though he'd mastered techniques that complemented his demonic abilities, but in understanding. Understanding of balance, of purpose, of the line between strength and slavery. His brother would approve if Dante ever learned what had happened. His father would recognize the growth. His mother would see her son finally acknowledging the humanity she died protecting. The shuttle dropped from hyperspace near the dimensional anomaly, and Vergil began his analysis. Yamato laid across his lap, ready to cut through reality itself when the time came. Behind him, the Empire scrambled to track a target that had already vanished. Vader reported his failure to the Emperor, enduring Palpatine's fury with mechanical stoicism, saying nothing about Vergil's final words but thinking about them constantly. The surviving Jedi that Vergil had spared continued their work, preserving knowledge, protecting the innocent, keeping hope alive in dark times. And in the unknown regions, at the edge of charted space, the Son of Sparda prepared to tear open a doorway between dimensions, ready to return home or forge ahead to new worlds, no longer pursuing power for its own sake but wielding it with purpose. The Dark Slayer had evolved. Whether the Star Wars galaxy would remember him as villain or savior was irrelevant. He'd remember this galaxy as the place where he finally understood what his father had tried to teach him all along: that strength without compassion was tyranny, power without principle was slavery, and true mastery meant knowing when to draw the blade and when to sheath it. Yamato hummed in his hands as he raised it toward the dimensional anomaly, its edge beginning to glow with blue-white energy as it prepared to cut through the boundaries of reality itself. The Son of Sparda had entered the Star Wars galaxy seeking power. He was leaving having found something far more valuable: purpose. And as Yamato's edge pierced the fabric between dimensions, opening a rift that blazed with impossible colors and otherworldly energies, Vergil stepped through without hesitation, ready for whatever lay beyond. The portal sealed behind him, leaving only the faint echo of dimensional energy and the legend of the anomaly, the warrior who existed outside the Force, who defied the Empire, who walked the line between light and darkness without falling to either. Some said he was a demon, others claimed he was a ghost. A few, very few, recognized him for what he truly was: a man who found balance in a galaxy built on extremes, who chose his own path in a universe governed by destiny. And in the Force itself, which connected all living things, there remained a void where Vergil had been, a permanent scar, a reminder that even in a galaxy bound by cosmic energy, there existed powers beyond its reach, beings beyond its understanding, choices that transcended light and dark. The Force would remember the anomaly, even if it could never touch him. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. The legend of Vergil, the anomaly, became whispered myth in the years that followed. Imperial records classified him as threat level, Omega, terminated, though the classification was a lie designed to prevent panic. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. He had simply vanished, leaving behind only questions and a trail of broken assumptions about the Force's supremacy. Darth Vader never spoke of their final encounter in Nur's vault, but those closest to him noticed subtle changes. He questioned orders more frequently. He showed unexpected mercy to defeated opponents. He seemed to be searching for something he'd lost long ago, something the damaged warrior in blue had reminded him once existed. Emperor Palpatine declared the anomaly dead and forbade further investigation, but in private, he wondered. The Sith had believed themselves masters of the galaxy, commanders of the Force's ultimate power. Vergil had proven that belief hollow. Somewhere beyond the Empire's reach, a power existed that owed nothing to midi-chlorians or the cosmic balance. It was a sobering realization for a man who thought himself all-knowing. The Jedi that Vergil had spared, Kira Vantala, Tara Sinub, and others, continued their work with renewed determination. They'd seen proof that even in darkness, individuals could choose principle over expedience. If an outsider who owed them nothing could show such restraint, perhaps hope remained for the galaxy itself. Years later, when the rebellion finally brought down the Empire, when Vader redeemed himself through sacrifice, when balance finally returned to the Force, a few historians researching the Imperial era discovered fragmentary records of the anomaly. They pieced together the story: the warrior who hunted Jedi but spared the innocent, who defied the Emperor yet refused the rebellion's banner, who existed outside the Force but somehow embodied its truest principle, the freedom to choose. Some dismissed it as propaganda or myth. Others recognized truth in the inconsistencies, understanding that the galaxy's history contained more mysteries than the Force alone could explain. But in the unknown regions, near a dimensional weak point that occasionally pulsed with otherworldly energy, sensors sometimes detected impossible readings, traces of a power that shouldn't exist, echoes of dimensional cuts in space-time's fabric, the fatting signature of a blade that could sever reality itself. And those who knew what to look for, those who understood that existence extended beyond one galaxy and one cosmic energy field, would smile and whisper a name. Vergil, Son of Sparda, Dark Slayer, the anomaly. The warrior who proved that even in a galaxy bound by the Force, true power came not from cosmic destiny but from individual choice. The choice to pursue strength with purpose, to wield power with principle, to walk the line between light and darkness without surrendering to either. He had come seeking knowledge and left having taught a lesson the galaxy desperately needed. That balance wasn't about equal parts light and dark, but about having the strength to stand alone and the wisdom to choose compassion. Perhaps he found his way home. Perhaps he tore through to another dimension entirely, beginning a new journey in another reality. Or perhaps he remains in the unknown region still, meditating on the lessons learned, preparing for whatever comes next. The answer doesn't matter. What matters is the choice he made, to be more than his power, to transcend his obsession, to finally understand what his father had known all along. Strength is only meaningful when tempered by humanity. Power is only valuable when wielded with purpose. And the truest victory is not dominance over others, but mastery of oneself. In a galaxy far, far away, the Force continues its eternal dance, connecting all living things in its infinite web. But within that web remains a void, a space where the anomaly once stood, a reminder that even the Force has limits, and beyond those limits exist powers it can neither touch nor comprehend. And somewhere, across dimensions and realities, a blade that can cut through anything hums softly, waiting for its next battle, held by a warrior who finally learned the difference between having power and being enslaved by it. The story of Vergil in the Star Wars galaxy had ended. But the legend of the warrior who chose his own path in a universe governed by destiny would endure forever. It would take weeks to research it properly, to understand the forces at work, to determine if Yamato could safely cut through and create a stable portal. But it was a beginning, a path home, or perhaps a path to somewhere new entirely. Vergil allowed himself a rare smile, cold but genuine. He'd come to the Star Wars galaxy by accident, been tested by its challenges, tempered by its conflicts. He was leaving stronger than he'd arrived, not in raw power, though he'd mastered techniques that complemented his demonic abilities, but in understanding. Understanding of balance, of purpose, of the line between strength and slavery. His brother would approve if Dante ever learned what had happened. His father would recognize the growth. His mother would see her son finally acknowledging the humanity she died protecting. The shuttle dropped from hyperspace near the dimensional anomaly, and Vergil began his analysis. Yamato laid across his lap, ready to cut through reality itself when the time came. Behind him, the Empire scrambled to track a target that had already vanished. Vader reported his failure to the Emperor, enduring Palpatine's fury with mechanical stoicism, saying nothing about Vergil's final words but thinking about them constantly. The surviving Jedi that Vergil had spared continued their work, preserving knowledge, protecting the innocent, keeping hope alive in dark times. And in the unknown regions, at the edge of charted space, the Son of Sparda prepared to tear open a doorway between dimensions, ready to return home or forge ahead to new worlds, no longer pursuing power for its own sake, but wielding it with purpose. The Dark Slayer had evolved. Whether the Star Wars galaxy would remember him as villain or savior was irrelevant. He'd remember this galaxy as the place where he finally understood what his father had tried to teach him all along. That strength without compassion was tyranny, power without principle was slavery, and true mastery meant knowing when to draw the blade and when to sheath it. Yamato hummed in his hands as he raised it toward the dimensional anomaly, its edge beginning to glow with blue-white energy as it prepared to cut through the boundaries of reality itself. The Son of Sparda had entered the Star Wars galaxy seeking power. He was leaving having found something far more valuable: purpose. And as Yamato's edge pierced the fabric between dimensions, opening a rift that blazed with impossible colors and otherworldly energies, Vergil stepped through without hesitation, ready for whatever lay beyond. The portal sealed behind him, leaving only the faint echo of dimensional energy and the legend of the anomaly, the warrior who existed outside the Force, who defied the Empire, who walked the line between light and darkness without falling to either. Some said he was a demon, others claimed he was a ghost. A few, very few, recognized him for what he truly was: a man who found balance in a galaxy built on extremes, who chose his own path in a universe governed by destiny. And in the Force itself, which connected all living things, there remained a void where Vergil had been, a permanent scar, a reminder that even in a galaxy bound by cosmic energy, there existed powers beyond its reach, beings beyond its understanding, choices that transcended light and dark. The Force would remember the anomaly, even if it could never touch him. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson of all. The legend of Vergil, the anomaly, became whispered myth in the years that followed. Imperial records classified him as threat level, Omega, terminated, though the classification was a lie designed to prevent panic. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. He had simply vanished, leaving behind only questions and a trail of broken assumptions about the Force's supremacy. Darth Vader never spoke of their final encounter in Nur's vault, but those closest to him noticed subtle changes. He questioned orders more frequently. He showed unexpected mercy to defeated opponents. He seemed to be searching for something he'd lost long ago, something the damaged warrior in blue had reminded him once existed. Emperor Palpatine declared the anomaly dead and forbade further investigation, but in private, he wondered. The Sith had believed themselves masters of the galaxy, commanders of the Force's ultimate power. Vergil had proven that belief hollow. Somewhere beyond the Empire's reach, a power existed that owed nothing to midi-chlorians or the cosmic balance. It was a sobering realization for a man who thought himself all-knowing. The Jedi that Vergil had spared, Kira Vantala, Tara Sinub, and others, continued their work with renewed determination. They'd seen proof that even in darkness, individuals could choose principle over expedience. If an outsider who owed them nothing could show such restraint, perhaps hope remained for the galaxy itself. Years later, when the rebellion finally brought down the Empire, when Vader redeemed himself through sacrifice, when balance finally returned to the Force, a few historians researching the Imperial era discovered fragmentary records of the anomaly. They pieced together the story: the warrior who hunted Jedi but spared the innocent, who defied the Emperor yet refused the rebellion's banner, who existed outside the Force but somehow embodied its truest principle: the freedom to choose. Some dismissed it as propaganda or myth. Others recognized truth in the inconsistencies, understanding that the galaxy's history contained more mysteries than the Force alone could explain. But in the unknown regions, near a dimensional weak point that occasionally pulsed with otherworldly energy, sensors sometimes detected impossible readings, traces of a power that shouldn't exist, echoes of dimensional cuts in spacetime's fabric, the fatting signature of a blade that could sever reality itself. And those who knew what to look for, those who understood that existence extended beyond one galaxy and one cosmic energy field, would smile and whisper a name: Vergil, Son of Sparda, Dark Slayer, the anomaly. The warrior who proved that even in a galaxy bound by the Force, true power came not from cosmic destiny but from individual choice. The choice to pursue strength with purpose, to wield power with principle, to walk the line between light and darkness without surrendering to either. He had come seeking knowledge and left having taught a lesson the galaxy desperately needed. That balance wasn't about equal parts light and dark, but about having the strength to stand alone and the wisdom to choose compassion. Perhaps he found his way home. Perhaps he tore through to another dimension entirely, beginning a new journey in another reality. Or perhaps he remains in the unknown region still, meditating on the lessons learned, preparing for whatever comes next. The answer doesn't matter. What matters is the choice he made, to be more than his power, to transcend his obsession, to finally understand what his father had known all along. Strength is only meaningful when tempered by humanity. Power is only valuable when wielded with purpose. And the truest victory is not dominance over others, but mastery of oneself. In a galaxy far, far away, the Force continues its eternal dance, connecting all living things in its infinite web. But within that web remains a void, a space where the anomaly once stood, a reminder that even the Force has limits, and beyond those limits exist powers it can neither touch nor comprehend. And somewhere, across dimensions and realities, a blade that can cut through anything hums softly, waiting for its next battle, held by a warrior who finally learned the difference between having power and being enslaved by it. The story of Vergil in the Star Wars galaxy had ended. But the legend of the warrior who chose his own path in a universe governed by destiny would endure forever.